You said just now there are a lot of elements to the fighting in this game and kind of wrapping your head around combat. Can you talk a little bit more about those different elements? If you could break out kind
Yeah,
of
yeah,
the
yeah.
different areas of skill that somebody might need.
Yeah, I actually wanted to. I was thinking about that when you were saying it's hard to get like a spatial awareness for these things, right?
Hmm.
That comes with time, but what the first thing I wanted to do with a lot of my videos is I was focusing on trying to create a way where I can find a tool in the game that allows you to understand these vector changes without having to really like visually think about it, without having any experience. That's where I learned that using your lead pip can help you do that. Um, there's something that I do in
Can
my
you?
videos. It's called,
Sorry,
yeah.
just for everybody to understand, what exactly is a pip?
So the pip is a little targeting reticle that pops up in front of your ship when you target another ship. You'll see that little box that kind of goes in front of your ship, and
Hmm.
you'll see it kind of move around, and it's what you have to aim at. If you use lag pip, it's a little bit different. You usually get that little pip, and you have to move it on top of the ship. Lead pip is the other way around.
Okay.
You can use both. They both give you the exact same information, but I prefer lead pip. I think it's a little bit easier to understand vector with it.
Okay.
And a lot of my videos focus on using that tool to help you find spatial awareness. And we do it by teaching things like pip evasion, pip neutralization. It's just things that allow you to kind of understand how the pip's manipulation and movement around the ship is giving you information about where you're headed and where the opponent is headed.
Okay. So a lot of times, especially as a beginner, you're looking at the HUD, you're getting an idea of what everything stands for, and you see those two kind of G-force indicators down in the corners. That would naturally be where you're looking to understand what is my ship doing at the moment. But if you
No,
do,
stay away from that thing.
okay, yeah. So,
That thing is for aliens, man. I don't know who understands the G-force thing.
well, when you have another ship with you, suddenly you basically have an indicator, is what you're saying, using the pip as a way to understand what your own ship is doing.
Yeah, yeah, correct. You
Okay.
can use the pip kind of gives you G forces in a way, sort of. Um, it's a little complicated, but it's not. It's very simple. I'll give you guys like a very simple rundown of it.
Hmm.
Whenever you're flying and you lock onto the target and the pip falls right on top of the ship, like it is literally hovering on the enemy ship, that means there is no relative motion between the both of you.
Yeah.
That means that if you were to both look at each other, even if you're going 800 meters a second in one direction, you're both looking, it looks like you're both sitting still.
Yeah.
And then the movement of that pip shows you the change of velocity and direction.
Hmm. So you can kind of use that to understand, are they moving from or rather towards or away from you, left or right, things like that.
Yep,
So
exactly.
that's kind of one segment of a beginner's understanding of how these expressions of combat work. Is there something else that they should be keeping in mind, say like distance from the other ship, how you should change your style of fighting based on your distance?
Yeah, one of the big things I've seen a lot of people do, that especially people who come from other flight games or DCS, Elite Dangerous even,
Hmm.
people are always talking about the merge, which for anybody who doesn't know, merging is when you and another opponent pass each other. It's wherever you intersect in space and you pass one another and then turn around to pass each other again. In space, you don't really want to merge. The goal is to stop before you merge and then acquire target and push shots on the target. And the way you stay evasive is doing things like pip evasion, which is using that pip's knowledge or information to kind of make it move around in a way that makes it hard for them to shoot you.
So you want to always stay as far away as you want then?
You can. Distance is safety. If we're talking about the current meta, usually about 1,200 is the safe spot. So anywhere in there, and if you strafe to either direction, it's going to be very hard for them to apply damage. When you start getting into like 800 to 500, that's more of a mid-range combat zone. That's kind of where it relies more on something called circle strafes, which some people know as corkscrews. The difference is a circle strafe is making a circle in space, while a corkscrew is having that circle either go forward or back.
Hmm.
In close range, we're talking to 300 to 100 meters, even zero, but zero is basically a merge. 100 meters to 300 meters is called knife fighting. In this category, we're talking more about evasion, and it's kind of what CAG has kind of hinted at, bringing more to the table of what the flight model changes. They want life fighters to push each other close, and they want people to knife fight, which becomes more about using kind of like drifting around corners in racing games. You drift around other ships and you change directions on them to kind of make them fumble and trip and get behind them and shoot at them while they're incapable of shooting at you.
Okay. So these are definitely different. It sounds like kind of three different types of combat that you can engage in. Sort of more predictive, far range versus medium range. How would you characterize medium range? If short range is knife fighting very quick and long range is kind of you get a little bit of space breathing room, but you can still land some shots. What is that medium range mainly used for?
Yeah. For anybody who wants to see this displayed, I did make a video on it. It's called Combat Styles on my channel.
Cool.
And basically, you have three things. You have the jabber, which is the long distance guy. What his goal is to stay at like 1,200, and then what he tries to do is kind of bait some shots and then back strafe on the opponent so that the guy is shooting at you and he's missing because he's too long distance. It's never going to connect. And then once that opponent is starting to run out of ammo, you kind of close the distance a little bit. You do some damage and then you rinse and repeat. Medium range is something I like to call the funnel. This is something that was coined by Avenger 1. It's fighting in the funnel, which basically it comes down to a lot of circle strafe combat. So what he'll have you do is you stay in that range, you do these circle strafes, and you invert them in other directions to stay evasive. This is it's very difficult, but it's not once you understand, again, the pip, because the pip can kind of help you understand if you're doing the circle correct or not. The third one, the knife fighting, is, again, close range.
Okay. So different types of fighting. Are these all things that you think are going to survive sort of the reworks of different types of like, we're not all going to get pushed into fighting the exact same way every time, right?
It's hard to say, again, because we don't really have those elements to play with. So
Sure.
It's really hard. But I think these elements will always exist. I think you'll always have long, medium, and close. What I think is going to happen is medium and long range is going to be harder to maintain because of the reverse being less effective. So we'll have to rely more on saving boost to maintain those distances. But again, they'll be much faster going forward. So it's something we're going to have to kind of play with and figure out.
Okay.